I want to amend my ratings for books that I am changing my mind on for the worse. The way that I'm going to be organizing this video is I'm going to start with the books that I initially rated a full 5 stars and move then to the books that I initially rated 4, 3, 2, and so on. Okay, so let's go ahead and get right into it. The first book that I am going to be lowering my rating is the London Seance Society. I think the reason that I initially rated this book a 5-star is because I was in a major reading slump at this time. I read this book in March of last year. This book really helped me bust out of that reading slump. I rated it a full 5 stars because I feel like that really says something about a book if it can get you out of a reading slump. But I feel like this is the main thing with a lot of these that I'm going to be lowering my rating on is they haven't really stuck with me at all. I lowered it to a 4 because it hasn't really stuck with me. Same for a lot of the books on this list. The next one is The Thing Between Us. I rated this one a 5 initially because I remember I really loved the writing of this book. Now sitting here a year later, it hasn't stuck with me. It doesn't stick out to me when I look at the cover, when I think about it. I remember I did go and watch several author interviews of this author discussing like their inspiration for this book. That's honestly like the only time that I've done that. I never go and watch author interviews and see the author speak about their book. So I don't know, at the time I read it, it really stuck out to me, but at this point, a year later, it's not standing out to me anymore. I don't have like really strong memories of it, so I am just going to be lowering the rating to a 4-star. And the final 5-star book that I am lowering my rating on is Chlorine. Another one that I really liked initially. I really loved the magical realism. The magical realism was so well done. I was just struck by the author's writing, and I felt like this book was very different. And I totally feel like if a book is very different and original, it's usually gonna rate pretty highly for me if I haven't read anything else like it before. And this one stood out to me because it was very different. But I feel like giving it a 5 was very generous, and I placed a lot of weight on how much I enjoyed the writing in the magical realism, when in actuality, when I was reading this book, there was several portions of it that I found myself skimming that I just was not interested in. And this book does read a lot like a literary fiction, contemporary coming of age story. And a lot of that did not interest me. A lot of the teenage drama, angst, like growing up stuff did not interest me. The romance between these characters did not interest me, and I was skimming those portions. So anytime that a book is gonna make me skim, I don't feel like it should be rated a full 5 stars. So that's why I am lowering it to a 4. I get why I gave it a 5 initially, but at this point, a year later, I have changed my mind. Okay, moving on to my 4 stars that I am lowering my ratings. The first one is Ripe. I initially rated this book a 4-star, and I am lowering it to a 3. Again, very similar to what I said about Chlorine, is there were portions of this book that I found myself skimming because I really disliked the content. I was not interested, did not want to read about it. And it was, the main character is in a relationship, is in some sort of situation with a married man. I believe he's married. Or he's in a relationship with another girl, I think. I hope I'm remembering this right. Like I said, this is like a lot of these, it's like a year later. The content of this book that was surrounding her and this dude that she was dating, it just was like so gross to me because I didn't want to read about that. So I was skimming those portions for that reason. And because I honestly remember so little about this book, so little. It is one that is different and original, and I hadn't really read something exactly like this before, so I can see why I rated it a 4-star initially. but it just doesn't have that lasting power. And because some portions I really found myself skimming and glazing over, I am lowering my rating to a 3. The next one is You Can Trust Me. I rated that one a 4. I'm lowering it to a 3. Again, I don't hardly remember a thing about this one. I remember how it ends, and I think that was something that I really liked about this book, was the way it ended. Sometimes there'll be like one little thing about a book that will stick out to me so much, it'll really color my rating or my feelings or my opinion about the book. When I take more time, sit back and get some perspective to look at that book as a whole, my opinion now is that I don't like it as much as I feel like I initially did, so I am lowering my rating to a 3. Goodness gracious, we gotta get through these a little bit faster. The next book is 𝚆𝙗𝚃 by 𝚆𝙗𝚃𝚷. I rated this a 3, which was so incredibly generous. I don't know why I rated it. You know, I do know why I rated it a 3. I rated this a 3-star initially because I read the book entirely physically. Like, I didn't listen to the audio at all, and for me that is huge because I always listen to the audio. Sometimes I'll do blended reads where I read physically and listen, but for this one I didn't have the audio because I read it right when it came out, and there were so many holes. Like, I was not going to get the audio for weeks, months. The fact that I read it physically and I annotated it, like I annotated the whole thing. Like, I went through so much effort with that book. And for that reason, because I put so much effort into it, it colored my reading experience, colored my rating and opinion, where I felt like I was being more generous to it because of how much energy and my own time I gave to that thing. However, the book, that book made me really mad. The longer it sits with me, the more I dislike it. I'm lowering it to a 2-star, but to be honest, I almost want to give it a 1 because I just don't like, there's a lot of things I don't like about it. Okay, the next book is The Death I Gave Him. Initially, I had this at a 3-star. Longer I think about it, I think that rating was way too generous, and I'm lowering it to a 2. I feel like this book was very convoluted, and there's an aspect of a AI dating a human relationship in there, and I just found that so weird. I cannot get over it. The way that the publishers are marketing this as a queer romance when the queer romance is between a computer and a human. Like, that's what? You know, like, no. Just, that book fell apart by the end. It fell apart. The first half was really good, really interesting, and so I was being very generous when I initially rated it, but at this point, my feelings is a 2. The next book, Girls and Their Horses. Initially I rated it a 3-star. I felt like this one was different because of the setting. Like, I had never read a thriller or a book in general, I don't think, that's set at like a horse stables, and I thought that was a really fun setting for a thriller, and I love horses so much. I love horses ever since I was little. So again, that I was like, I honed in on one little thing and I rated it more highly because of that, but it's just, this one was so basic. It was so basic, and yeah, I'm lowering that to a 2. The next book is Flash Count Diary. I initially rated that one a 3-star, and I'm actually lowering my rating to a 1-star. Whew. This is a nonfiction book about menopause, and I just really was very, very confused the way the author told the story, because I kind of was thinking this was going to be more of a memoir or giving us more information on menopause, which is something I would love to learn more about. But there was a lot of very distracted portions of this that I just felt like was totally unnecessary. There was one chapter in particular that grossed me out so badly, I like had to skip the whole thing. And it was not to do with menopause. Like, that's not the thing that grossed me out, of course. It was something else, and I just was like, why is this content in here, you know? Okay, the next one is Rock, Paper, Scissors. I'm lowering that one from a 3-star to a 1-star. I'm so sorry to all of my Alice Feeney fans out there. This book was not for me. When I think about it, I get angry. When I think about this book, I get angry inside. Like, ugh. So that's a 1-star. Like, if I look at it and it makes me feel like repulsed and it makes me physically cringe, that's a 1-star to me. So I don't know why I rated it a 3 initially. Like, I don't know what I was doing that day. Like, no. So now we're gonna move on to the 2 stars. And all of these, I can only lower them to a 1. So all of these were initially a 2, and they're all being lowered to 1 star. So the first one, Last to Leave the Room. Whew, this book, I was so highly anticipating it. Why was I so generous as to give it a 2? I thought that the ending picked up a little bit, but the first like 90% of it was so boring. This is really hard. This is really hard to justify my ratings here. It's like a gut feeling, you know? All of these books, when I look at all of these books that I'm talking about in the 2-star section, I get that same feeling that I get when I just talked about rock, paper, scissors, where when I look at that, I get like angry inside. It makes me like physically have like this physical like, ooh, like cringe reaction, you know? And so the hike really bothered me so much reading it. I was so angry the whole time. There's several reasons. One, I really hated the content of the book. My reading experience, I had a lot of those same feelings. Like, it gave me that feeling when I was reading it. And I still feel it now. It's like I remember it, you know? It's like looking at that title, thinking about it, that reading experience that I had, it's like I can feel it again. I was angry, I was frustrated, I was just... This is not a good book whatsoever. I don't know why I didn't just rate it a 1. I can't see one single redeeming quality for this one. Versus the first book I said, Last to Leave the Room, it picks up by the end. Also, it has a very interesting and original concept, Last to Leave the Room. This book, no redeeming quality, so I don't know where that 2-star came from. This is definitely a 1-star book for me. The next book, Vampires of El Norte. Same thing. This book, I had a horrible, terrible reading experience reading this. I was so annoyed, mad, wanted it to be over, just, ugh. The romance in this book just was so cringy. It was so like, if you want like a really syrupy, like, if you like romance, you will probably love this book, okay? But I don't like reading romance, and that's just me. So that's why this book did not work for me, and for me, it's a 1-star. But for a lot of other people, it's probably gonna be a 4 or 5-star if they love romance. The next one is The Hunting Party. Yeah, okay, again, why? Why did I give this book 2 stars? It is so skippable. Like, if you wanna pick this book up, save yourself the time and instead pick up The Guest List by the same author, because this is like a carbon copy of her book The Guest List, but it just has a different setting and a different cast of characters, but it's the same exact story, and The Guest List is far superior to this one in my opinion. I didn't like this one. It's another one that grossed me out. It's another one that had skim portions, and it's a 1-star. The next book, Pinata. There were so many things about this book that did not make sense. Like, it just was so not realistic. You can't have your characters doing that and expecting me to just believe it, go along with it. It just was not good, okay? So that one's a 1-star. The next one is Disturbance. The synopsis of this book is so misleading. It makes you think this book is going to be about like dark magic, this woman experimenting with magic and healing from the trauma of her past relationship. All it really is all these like flashbacks of her being in this very abusive relationship and like detailing what happened in their relationship, and it was just, it felt pointless to me. Like, what am I getting from reading this? And then the side plot with her neighbors, just, I don't know. I don't know what the author was doing with this book, but it was not for me. Not one thing I liked about it, so 1-star. The next book is She Started It. This book is so bad. Please do not read it. The next book is Silver Nitrate. Oh, again, the characters in this book are god awful, horrible. Like, oh my goodness gracious, I hated these characters. The next book, Strange Sally Diamond. I do not get this book. I do not get the hype around this book. I do not get what the author was trying to say with this. This book is really gross, and I would highly recommend you do not read it. The final book is A Twisted Love Story. This is another book. This is another book that could have just stayed in the drafts, you know? Like, I don't know why this author came out with this because she has such a fantastic backlist, and I know she's capable of so many good things. And this book felt like when you have a book report due the next day and you sit at the keyboard and you just write, like, you have to write 500 words or whatever, and you just like come up with like restating the same sentence like 2,000 times, you know, like that's what this book felt like to me. Like it just was so, what happened in this book? Nothing happens in this book. It's just pointless. These are all of the books that I have reevaluated my ratings on them a year later, and I've changed my mind on these. I have lowered my ratings on them. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.